Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to tonight's weather chat with Timmy. I'm Timmy, obviously. All right, with that in mind, folks, we're going to kind of make this a little bit of a quick one as we are a little late in starting it here. We got Tropical Storm Philippe. We'll take a look at that, and we're also going to take a look at a much larger upper level system that is tracking its way now into parts of the upper U.S. and into southern Canada. And again, we'll take a look at what that translates to down at the surface. And hint, hint, it's going to be a nice area of low pressure that's going to bring some very fall temperatures to a good portion of the eastern United States over the next couple of days. And honestly, even as we go into next week, this is looking like it's probably going to be kind of a long-lasting system, more or less here. And sometimes these stronger ones do last for a while. So without any further ado, let's take a look at the tropics. All right, we got Tropical Storm Philippe out there. And for those of you who've been following along, Philippe has just struggled its entire life, and it's still struggling today, albeit not quite as badly. If you look at the top right there, you see that big blob there of that purple color, that white color. What you're looking at here is an infrared satellite imagery. This is measuring the temperature of the cloud tops. When we have big thunderstorms, those cloud tops go really high and they cool down. So those purple colors that you see there are very cold cloud tops. However, that is not where the center of Philippe is. The center is actually a little further off towards the west. If you look closely, you might be able to see a little bit of a swirl there, and that is actually kind of where the center of Philippe is. So the convection is not necessarily in the right spot to a degree. Again, if we take a look here at the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, Philippe is expected to stay as a tropical storm. It might intensify just a little bit more, but it's likely not going to be reaching hurricane status in its lifetime, though it will probably pass over the island of Bermuda. There are some tropical storm warnings that are in effect for Bermuda, and that's going to be as we go into Friday morning and into Friday afternoon. Beyond that, we're going to see Philippe really start to pick up some speed. And what's actually happening is that it's getting absorbed into this much broader upper level system that we're going to take a look at here in a moment. But again, that's why it takes that sharp turn to the northwest as we head towards the weekend, going into New England as a tropical storm. However, by that point, it probably won't be a proper tropical storm. It's likely going to lose a lot of its tropical characteristics and just kind of become a general low pressure. That'll then get absorbed into a much larger system that is going to be present across that area. So most tropical systems meet their end this way. This is not unusual. Some of them don't. Some of them just kind of fizzle out, like what we saw with Rena. But again, a lot of tropical systems, this is kind of a typical process. They're just going to get absorbed into something, mainly an upper level system, if they don't hit land. Or you get the idea. All right, let's go ahead, folks, and take a look at the latest weather map, shall we? All right, let's go ahead and flip the screen here. Let's take a look here at the surface, an area that we're all a little bit more familiar with here. So basically, we got our area of low pressure right now that is over Western Ontario. Not the strongest low pressure, but it's enough to get the job done. Yesterday, when we were taking a look at it about this time, we'll back it up here one day. You can see we have this cold front that was tracking its way through parts of the Midwest, and we had this secondary cold front that was making its way in. The secondary cold front eventually took over, and now as we see here at the latest map, the secondary cold front is now the predominant one. It has this little area of low pressure that is occluded. We talked about that the other day. Occlusion, what does that mean? That's that purple front that you see here. Sometimes does throw some people off. Basically, what's happening with this is the cold front is actually cutting off the warm front. All right, low pressures like to lift warm, moist air, all right, or at least relatively warmer air. That's a lot easier to lift than colder air. What happens is the cold front will move quicker than the warm front in most cases, and when that happens, well, it begins to overrun the warm front. Now, this area of low pressure doesn't have the warmer air that it wanted to lift. Okay, now it's trying to lift colder air. And not only that, but now there's colder air above it too, and long story short, the column becomes too heavy. Typically at this point is when we start seeing an area of low pressure weakening, at least at the surface. However, with some of these stronger systems, and this is one that's going to be in particular, it's not the end. We're actually going to probably see a new area of low pressure develop right here at what is called the triple point, where we get that cold front and that warm front meeting up. And again, you have that occluded front in the backside here. So kind of a classic situation with that. Take a look here at the temperatures. Again, yesterday when we were looking at Michigan, they had temperatures, we'll back it up here a little bit too, about this time yesterday, they were sitting in the lower 80s. That first cold front came through, and check it out, it pushed their temperatures now down into the mid 60s, about 20 degrees cooler. That secondary cold front is probably going to help knock them down even just a little bit more. As a matter of fact, sitting in the 50s right now, back out across parts of Minnesota, even into the 40s already across parts of Minnesota, and even as you go a little bit further up towards the north in Ontario. So that is a much cooler air mass. Interestingly, there's another little cold front wave back over here across the prairies, just kind of a little renegade front here. Looks like the low pressure isn't associated with it anymore. That might kind of track a little bit down, but for the most part, this is kind of the culprit of some of that cooler air, at least at the surface. All right, so let's take a look here at what this looks like on the upper level chart. Now, again, for those of you who might not be familiar or, this doesn't necessarily interest you, we're not going to spend a long time on this, but we will take a little bit of a look at it. So right now we're looking at about 18,000 feet above the ground. These are lines of constant height. We've talked about that before. As the air mass gets cooler, the heights drop. What does that mean? This particular map is a 500 millibar. So we're looking at what height is that 500 millibar pressure reading. Now, again, we talk about millibars at the surface. Again, that area of low pressure had 1,000 millibars. Again, because of gravity, air is way denser down in the lower part than it is up in the higher part. But this helps to give us a good indication of more or less the temperature profile of particular air mass here. So those black lines are lines of constant height. Now, at this level, friction is not as big of a factor as it is down at the surface. So a lot of times when you see these type of maps, same thing goes higher up too, is that you can almost think of those lines as kind of the wind direction, more or less here. Wind will kind of run parallel with those lines, and that's exactly what we see here. So again, we have our west to east flow. There you go, wind's going that way, and then it's being taken up that way. Again, pressure gradient force really taking its toll here. Coriolis force kind of turns it over towards the right, and that's kind of what we got going on. So we have ourselves an upper level low. Now, you'll notice that this upper level low, to a degree, is centered right over Western Ontario as well as part of Saskatchewan. But again, this is the section that we're watching right here. That's where that area of low pressure is. Take a look here. We'll go back to our surface chart. See the center of that low pressure at the surface? So we got the upper level low and the surface low pretty much right over each other. All right, so we're not going to see much in the way of lift happening now because, again, we got that cooler air in place. It's just not going to work. So now we're going to probably see a new area of low pressure developing right around this triple point, and that will eventually take over to a degree. So let's take a look at our friends over at the got ahead of myself, the Weather Prediction Center. Let's see what they are expecting in the forecast as we head our way through the next couple of days. Today is Thursday. All right, let's take a look here. So right now, this is pretty much the setup. We got our low pressure over here, and we got our cold front dropping down through here. All right, looks like a little kind of just a little secondary wave cold front there. Again, just kind of helping to reinforce. Here's our surface high pressure, by the way. Now this guy is going to drop down to the south. So as we go into the day tomorrow, we're going to start off with that area of low pressure still over Western Ontario, but as mentioned, we're probably going to have a new area of low pressure developing with that. And again, this is going to kind of help to continue the system. Meanwhile, this area of high pressure begins to work its way in. What's happening now in the upper levels too is we're going to have this jet streak that's currently working its way out of Alberta and into parts of the upper plains. That's actually, let's go ahead and kind of visualize this a little bit here rather than explain it. So let's take a look here. We got our jet streak, which right now, we'll back up this map here. This is an upper level map. Again, this is actually looking a little higher up here, but again, you can see those purple colors there. That is our, not purple, pink, I guess. This is our jet streak right here. So watch what happens now as we kind of take a look at this guy. You can see how as that jet streak then rushes down, you can see how it kind of helps to enhance at the surface kind of a new little area, kind of somewhat of a new clothesline. Now, on this particular map, we're not actually looking at wind speeds. They are denoted, but these colors is something called vorticity, and I will spare you the explanation for that right now, but vorticity is kind of a fun thing. It has to do with the way the air rotates. And there's relative and there's absolute vorticity too, and that gets really trippy. But anyways, long story short, so don't worry about the colors, okay? Just kind of worry about these lines here more or less. So as that jet streak pushes its way through, again, we can see we're going to start kind of getting this almost new center to develop here. Now, again, we're looking at the upper levels, and you can see how that swings down into the Great Lakes region as we go our way into the weekend, and then it just kind of closes itself off. And now that upper level low is likely going to hang around across parts of Ontario, Quebec, and even the Great Lakes as we go through not only the weekend, but then heading into the start of next work week. Now, this is going to be interesting too, because we're probably going to, if this does shape out exactly like this, and folks, keep in mind, this is just one particular model we're looking at. Don't take it exactly as it is, all right? But it helps to kind of at least give us a little general kind of idea here of what's going to be going down here. So again, probably see maybe some little waves here of low pressure, or these little disturbances here in the mid levels, upper levels, I guess I should say, kind of swinging down through it. And we'll come back to that at a later time. But again, overall, the main thing just kind of hanging out there. So we got this very cool air mass. So let's take a look here back at our map. And so we can see our surface low pressure just kind of hanging on. There's the cold front. And take a look. Here comes the high pressure rushing in on the backside of this. Now, that is going to be responsible for helping to bring in some cooler air. How cool is it? Well, according at least to this particular map, looking like some snow showers can be possible across parts of North Dakota as we head into the day tomorrow. Again, obviously not unusual up there to have that in October, but that does give you at least a little bit of an idea. Our low pressure continues to spin as we head through Friday. Let's go into Friday night. You can see it's still hanging around there. That cold front, though, begins to slow down. So we're going to have to kind of wait for another little push to begin to nudge it forward, and there it comes in the form of that little cold front that you see there, just a little extra push there. See how that second cold front pushes up, and then it helps to kind of push it forward. New area of low pressure looks like it'll probably start developing across upstate New York. Again, we got this upper level low hanging around. We got these disturbances coming through, any little notches. What about Philippe? Might be hard to see it here on the map, but if you look way, way off towards the edge there on the right, there is Philippe, which at this point will probably not be tropical. And it's going to get kind of absorbed into the system, and that's really going to help this area of low pressure to develop further. And this is going into the weekend now. So as we go into Saturday evening, let's take a look here. What's going to happen as we head into the day on Sunday. So we'll back this guy up here to about day 3. And we'll make sure that we got a loop. And look at that. That low pressure just really intensifies. All right. So that's kind of the help it needed. Some extra moisture, some extra warmer air, some extra energy. And it just kind of really intensifies there. So pretty cool, huh? Now, what does this mean for New England? What does this mean for the Great Lakes? It means it's probably going to be cool. It's probably going to be a little bit on the windy side. I mean, heck, we got a very tight pressure gradient here. Maybe some lake enhanced rain showers as we go towards the end of the weekend. But again, that low just hangs around. And take a look. It just really occludes. Okay, this thing backs up. This thing really intensifies. And look at that. That's going into the day on Tuesday. Excuse me, on Monday. Can't get my days straight. So there we go. This is a very interesting thing. Again, this is the normal life cycle of most lows. Some of them are stronger than others, and it looks like this is going to be one of the stronger ones. We're looking at what here? A 988 millibar pressure there. So that's a pretty low area of low pressure. If you think that the average pressure, the average sea level pressure is about 1013 millibars, so you get the idea. Most hurricanes will be around 950. At least the stronger ones, and I believe Wilma was the strongest, strongest lowest pressure, and that was 882 millibars, if I remember correctly, back in 05. I think it was 882, or was it 887? Anyways, regardless, you get the idea. Pretty low. All right, so there you go. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so again, and for those of you who want some fun reading the Norwegian cyclone model, this guy actually kind of lines up pretty well with it here. So, if you don't want to read ahead, don't worry. We'll talk about this probably during tomorrow's weather chat because it looks like this area of low pressure is going to be kind of a really good example. I don't want to say textbook because in weather, a lot of things don't always go exactly as they would in the textbook, but pretty close to that here. So, yeah, certainly kind of a strong low pressure, that's for sure. Certainly going to be a little bit on the windy and rainy side. So this weekend for some of those football games, yeah, looking like we're going to be seeing some rain on the East Coast, especially across New England, going back into the Great Lakes. So, and then cooler temperatures to go with that. So because that upper level low is going to be hanging around, below average temperatures are probably going to be a thing as we go forward into next week, especially across the eastern part of the U.S. Not only that, but maybe even as we head towards next weekend, pending how long that upper level low kind of hangs around. The past couple of days, I've been showing you guys the Climate Prediction Center's, 6 to 10 day outlook. Again, it doesn't tell you the number; it just tells you the likelihood of during that time frame will the temperature end up being on average above or below average. Let's take a look at what their latest forecast is from the Climate Prediction Center. And this is looking for October 11th to the 15th. There we go. There's some of our below average temperatures across parts of the Great Lakes. And again, with that upper level low hanging around too, again, that might help to keep the temperatures, at least across parts of the upper Midwest, from going back to above average, or at least way above average, like what we saw earlier this week. So heck of a weather change, but keep in mind, folks, in meteorology, especially this time of the year, if you have unusually warm weather, you're probably going to be followed up by unusually, well, at least cooler weather, depending on the situation. Now, obviously, folks, there's exceptions to that rule, but generally that's the theme. If you had an unusually warm day this time of the year, it means you're probably going to be seeing some cooler temperatures, and it's looking like, again, across northern Minnesota and, northern Minnesota, maybe even parts of Wisconsin, it's going to be probably 50s for highs and 30s for lows, cloudy, mostly cloudy over the next few days, especially as we go into the weekend. Frost might be possible up in that way too here. So kind of a really quick explanation. So tomorrow we're going to talk more about the general life cycle of a low pressure system. I know that might sound incredibly boring, but it's actually incredibly cool. It's very fascinating, and I think you guys will enjoy it a little bit. We'll take kind of a look at just the Norwegian cyclone model. We won't necessarily go into too much detail about the upper level winds, at least tomorrow. Maybe we'll do that a little bit over the weekend. But this whole thing is kind of a process. And it's very fascinating. Again, in this time of the year, we get some goodies. And so that's what's going on. Again, a low pressure's entire purpose in life is to try to even things out. Unfortunately, it normally doesn't work out, well, at least generally. But it tries to even temperatures out, at least at the surface. Same thing with highs. But again, as mentioned, the way physics work, because the Earth's rotating too, with uneven heating and geography, topography, moisture, big air masses, big land masses, doesn't always go that way. So pretty cool. All righty, everyone. I think that's enough for tonight. I think we all got the general idea of what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days and have ourselves a pretty cool area of low pressure. We already got one right now, and again, these are just going to kind of all be associated with the same upper level system. That's kind of the main thing to keep in mind here. And again, that's the same upper level system, which will also absorb Philippe, and that absorption of Philippe later on this weekend will really help that the new area of low pressure that develops to really take off. So that's kind of that. All righty, everyone. Fun one for tomorrow. Make sure you tune in. In the meantime, I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. And as always, keep enjoying that weather. See you back here tomorrow evening, everyone.